Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the New Standard, a Steelers podcast for Steeler Nation. And always joining me to my left, I have my partner in crime, Neal Coolong. What's up, Neal, and Happy New Year, baby.
Happy New Year to you as well. I'm excited to get to spend this time with you and the show that we put together throughout this year. It's definitely one of the highlights for me. One of the things I am grateful for, and obviously along with that, our loyal and trusted audience. Hello to all of you guys as well, and Happy New Year.
I'd like to echo that, man. Thank you, everybody that's joined us for this ride. You know, it's really hard once you leave a podcast platform to start your own again and reconnect with a lot of the listeners that you have in the past. But, you know, we're chugging along, man. I believe I took a look at the YouTube channel, up to 500 subscribers. And so, you know, we're going to keep continuing to bring you really good content. And in fact, you know, actually now, Neal, it's pretty weird, man. I like the business season almost as much as the game. You know, I mean, I guess
funny
that's
that you say that. I've been asked that on 3 different radio hits within the last week. And I'll say this. I'm sorry, I totally just cut you off. I'm half awake right now.
Oh, no worries.
In all honesty, the reason I am doing this, and there actually is more than 2 or 3 people looking at it, the reason I have a career in this space is because of the off season. And that's the dirty secret that they don't tell you about. Far more people are interested in the NFL's off-season activities than they are in the season. I know that through multiple networks, running specific sites, running entire networks, content picks up in the off-season to a huge degree. People love free agency. They love the draft. They love the idea of how a roster is coming together. It's the game within the game. And I'm blessed enough to say I can make a living off of that. And it's simply because so many people fail to recognize that. I remember there was a time, I'm not going to name a name, but there was a certain beat writer covering the Steelers who took vacation at the start of free agency. And I was always just beside myself with that. Like, there's something. I mean, like, I want it. If the story is the Steelers didn't sign anybody, then that's the story, you know, talk about it. Let's get into it. It's not this way anymore. And I'm dating myself quite a bit. This probably goes back at minimum 15 years. There was a time in which this stuff wasn't really covered. They didn't really get in depth with it because the idea was, well, the Steelers don't sign anybody in free agency. Who cares? The stuff going on around the league affects every team to some degree, and fans want to talk about it. So I was able to just make that into, a passion project that turned into a job. And I am very thankful for people who shared the same kind of enthusiasm that I did for transactional news, which is really where we are today.
Yeah, it's great because, you know, I'm of the age and I'm dating myself. And before we hopped on, Neal and I were talking about Cobra Kai and the Karate Kid, the Cobra Kai
Cobra
series.
Kai, never die. Cobra Kai, never die.
That's a YouTube series, right?
It's on Netflix now. It was YouTube
okay.
when they started. Netflix acquired it.
And, you know, I'm sort of dating myself, and we might as well jump into it because if you can see the background, you see the image of Ben Roethlisberger holding up the peace sign and forever. And, you know, I was going to say I'm of the era, and the title of this show, of course, is, you know, will Ben Roethlisberger essentially and the Steelers win their last home game against the Browns? We're going to jump into that. If you want a link to the show, it's on all podcast platforms. I want to apologize because I didn't post the pod till like days later for some reason. But so that pod will be up. You'll probably get 2 podcasts, one from last week. And also, you can find the podcast on YouTube. Do a search for The New Standard and Lance Williams or Neal Coolong. I am of the era where when football season ended, you had no news. And I'm of the era where I actually went to see Karate Kid in the movies, which makes me pretty damn old. With that being said, when I was going through Twitter, and, you know, I don't want to offend anyone. You know, I'm an instigator on Twitter. That's just what I do. I mean, because I find Twitter, I find Twitter as a, I really don't like Twitter. Let me just say that. So because I don't like Twitter and because I have to be on Twitter, I antagonize people on Twitter because every minute I'm on it, I feel like my IQ is being reduced by a microfraction. Like each second.
You don't have to follow me, Lance. Just don't.
No, you are one of the few people that give decent information. Everybody else is like,
not true.
I mean, everybody else is it's just. I'm not gonna say everybody else, but a lot
There's
of
a
other.
bunch of it. You have a
There's a bunch of it.
non-filtered, full access
Yes,
community that only needs to put in a hashtag in order to weigh in on whatever it is.
and
And yeah,
so
most of it is just absolute garbage information.
I'm reading this guy who's I forget his site. I don't know if he's an accredited reporter or whatever. And he writes, "Look, there will be no unbiased reporting here. Ben Roethlisberger is the reason you have a terrible towel. Ben Roethlisberger is the reason you like the Steelers.
No
Ben,
bias involved.
and so it made me take a step back and say, I'm 51 years old. I had to check the dates, right? I had to check the dates, and right, I was like, okay, maybe I've watched the Steelers. Ben was drafted. Correct me if I'm wrong. 2004.
Oh, 04.
I was like, wait a minute. Okay, 2004. That would make me 34 years of age at the time. I'll say I started remembering football mid 70s. Second grade. I can remember the players. I was reading the almanac, whatever. And I was like, my fandom and love for the Steelers started, I'm going to guess, 20 years prior to Big Ben becoming a Steeler. And what I wanted to ask you, because you're younger than me, Neal, it feels like right now in modern Steeler football, and I'm going to say 69 on, there's a line of demarcation somewhere. Is it just 2004 where a majority of Steeler Nation just remembers Ben, and there's kind of like, BC and AD. There's like
Now BB and
BB
AB.
before B and AB. Excuse me, I don't want to call Ben AB,
Yeah,
but
better not bring that up.
but AB after Ben. Like when is that land of demarcation? Because for me, the quarterback that I loved and was sorry that he was gone, and kind of the emotion that Twitter Steeler Nation is going through, like change your profile picture and put Ben on there for Monday. That was Terry Bradshaw. Because I'm 51, I was born in 1970. My allegiance, I was born off the curtain Steelers, that era of football.
Yep.
Like I got all Joe Green jerseys. I got Palomalu and Joe Green. I don't wear offensive player jerseys because when I think of the Steelers, I think of defense. I don't think of offense. I have one actually, one offensive jersey, and that's the bus because it represented the running game, and he was gritty and grimy. That's just kind of where I am because of my age. What is that line of demarcation in age to where the nation is kind of gravitating to, oh my God, Ben is leaving, the world is ending, oh my.
I think really what you're going to hear is probably that there are three epochs. There's basically the Steel Curtain era, because let's be honest, whoever it is that's around that can really speak glowingly about the Steelers back in the 50s is really old and not going to be around for a whole lot longer. My apologies if that offends anybody. It's just true. The Steel Curtain era, which is what kind of started the foundation off. Then there's kind of the dark times in which nothing really happened for 20 years, whatever it is, basically the 80s into kind of Cowers time. And then you have the Ben era, which is what I'm a product of the Ben era. I was born right after, I think I was 4 months old when they won their fourth Super Bowl, and then didn't do anything until I was 26 years old. So that period of time is what I grew up with. So I can absolutely mark much of my fandom with Ben. But I really got into it with Blitzburg, which is the early to mid 90s Steelers, Cowers Steelers, right away. But it wasn't probably successful enough to say it's an epoch in terms of, yeah. It wasn't big enough or successful enough to say this was, something a fan base was built on. What we have really are two of them. And I would say the pre-Ben belongs to the Steel Curtain generation, just simply because it's the tail end of that, really, more than anything else. There is a segment of fans, and this is what we have to understand as, continuing old people here, Lance. We have to understand there is a large segment of audience now watching the Steelers that don't know Steelers football without Ben. If we say that a
Yes.
diehard fan starts when he's 5 years old, you're talking about somebody born in 1999, which would put them into their 20s today. They've only known Ben. And
Yes, they
that's
have.
the age demographic that dominates social media. So you're going to hear nonsense like, Ben is the only reason you're a fan and blah, 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 blah. There was a long time, we have to understand, quarterbacks, while valuable, were not what they are right now. 15 years ago, go back to Ben. 18 years ago, Ben Roethlisberger was the 11th overall pick in the draft. He was a good quarterback. There's no doubt. Today, there is no way Ben Roethlisberger makes it past the top 3 in picks. There's no way. Okay. On top of that, Justin Herbert, who's barely human, in my opinion, is the 7th overall pick because he has a few flaws in his game. He is so much better than Ben was when Ben was a rookie. It's not even funny. And I'm not trying to insult him. I'm just saying Patrick Mahomes didn't exist back then. You didn't see Justin Herbert back then. Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence. These are insanely talented passers of the football. Ben was really good. I'm not at all denying that. Ben is nowhere near the prospect that those guys are today. And you're seeing more and more of them come into the league. So with that, what you're able to do as an offense increased tremendously in a very short amount of time, not to mention the rule changes, everything that kind of, was pushing this evolution of the game. So people saying it's Ben or die, it's Ben or everything, Ben's the best of all time. It's like, well, yeah, a lot of that is evolution. If you watch Terry Bradshaw throw a football, though, that man, he had a beautiful
Oh my
throwing motion.
goodness.
He was poetry. And he had a cannon of an arm. I think he had
Absolute
a better
cannon.
arm than Ben did. They just didn't know what to do back then. So Bradshaw's stats, even comparatively, aren't very good. He just played big time games, and that's a first ballot Hall of Famer to me.
Yes.
No issues with that. But this generation, and I hate to say this because I may as well be saying get off my lawn, but this generation doesn't understand how much better quarterbacks are, how much more offense there is today versus even 15 years ago. If you go back and watch, I've said this 1,000 times. Anybody that knows me well knows I bring this comparison up a lot. Go back and watch the 2008 season AFC Championship games played in January of 2009. Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens. You watch that game and tell me that it resembles today's football, because it absolutely does not. It is one of the most savage, horrific acts of organized sport you will ever see. They simply cannot play the game that way anymore. So all of this kind of sets up the idea that Ben contributed to an evolution in the game that we're seeing today that he isn't a part of anymore. He played his role.
Right.
His time is
Right.
up. We've said on the show 1,000 times, he's not playing beyond this year. We've gone off on 1,000 rants about it. He wasn't going to play. None of this is a surprise. He wasn't going to play. Everybody knew it. So it's great that it's sad to me in a lot of ways, just because my fandom, the insane fandom, like the point where I kind of lost track of what was important in life and went into football, was with Ben under center. But at the same time, I remember being extremely excited about Cordell Stewart when he improved to the point where he was, beyond at mediocre at best quarterback. I was super excited for Tommy Maddox when he took over, and all of a sudden we had downfield passing again. I grew up with Kent Graham, Mike Tomczak,
Jim Miller.
Oh my God, Jim Miller. Bubby. That was like the early days where all teams ran the ball 65% of the time, and you threw every now and again. Good quarterbacks. I don't think outstanding quarterback play really happened in the NFL until Marino. And if you didn't have Marino, you didn't do what the Dolphins were doing. It took a while for everybody to kind of catch up to that. And with it, we didn't idolize quarterbacks the way that they are idolized now. They are the centerpiece of the league, of sports in general. So you put all those things together, you can see from a historical standpoint why Ben matters as much as he does. And I haven't even brought up the word Super Bowl. It has nothing to do with that.
Yes.
It's what came from the evolution of the game. We finally caught up in terms of modern offense with Ben. And many will argue with me that we never even really got to that point. But Ben threw the ball prolifically the last 4 seasons of his career. He had massive success 3 of those 5 years, things kind of went downhill, as they do with old people. I know that very, very well. I get it. But overall, Ben's contributions to this team have changed over a very long period of time. And fans, understandably, younger ones, couldn't recognize football before Ben Roethlisberger. So to be honest, it makes perfect sense that a lot of them are saying, well, time to get on with it. We got to find somebody else. Ben's done. It's great. He's a legend. Or the other side of it, which is nothing matters except for Ben. He's the only one who's ever mattered. It's like there's a middle ground here somewhere. If you can't get Justin Herbert, you can't base your offense around a quarterback. It's just that simple. And you're not getting Justin Herbert drafted 15. So they're not going to do that. They're going to look to find another quarterback. And hopefully that quarterback is grossly underdrafted, kind of the way Ben was back in the day. And the Steelers can make another strong run at it. The AFC looks horrendously difficult over the next 5 to 7 years. And I'm not sure what Pittsburgh is going to do to counter that, but
they're going to have to find a quarterback.
To find one on the level of Burrow, of Herbert, Mahomes, it on and on. It's unreal. Half the teams have these elite level players, and the Steelers just simply aren't going to get that. So I don't know.
They're just going to have to get lucky. I mean, I think, and to put a lid on it, I think, there was a time when, Cowher lost repeatedly in the AFC Championship when I just thought, look, the Steelers are never going to win a Super Bowl with Cowher, like ever. And then Ben Roethlisberger came. So, the one thing I tried to say on Twitter is there always will be another. It's just how long will it take? Yeah. And, it took 25 years to get Ben Roethlisberger. And that's not to say that the Steelers can't play quality football in that time or may luck up and somehow win a Super Bowl
to have an MVP level quarterback to win championships, which you don't. So, in fact, it seems to work against teams more often than anything.
Yeah, it's just that salary cap number, but that was the era, and they're going to find another guy. But I can always remember back to Ben's rookie season. I think it was against Dallas when Ben threw the touchdown to beat Dallas late in the game. I remember getting a call from my dad and said, "Oh, we got one. We got one. We got our guy." And my pops is a hardcore. My pops is a hardcore North Side guy. Manchester. I mean, if you're from Manchester, you don't give kudos out easy to anybody. You're just like, okay, we'll see. And that's kind of where I get some of my personality is from growing up in the North Side. So, and when he called me like game 5 and was like, Ben is the guy. He's like, we've got our guy for the next 15 years. Trust me. I was like, oh, come on, man. but he was convinced. And, Ben has taken the fan base on a wonderful ride that's included a couple of championships. Unfortunately, the Ben era coincided with the Tom Brady era, or Tom Brady wasn't in the NFC, or you possibly could have had more Super Bowls. And it's no coincidence that the Steelers won their Super Bowls when Tom Brady was injured, just because Tom Brady was that good and the Patriots were that good. But that's no knock on Ben.
Not at all. And I think that what history is going to show, and this is something the Ben era of Steelers fans and the as you would describe them, the North Siders who won't give credit to anybody for anything, what they really need to remember and what history is going to record is that Tom Brady and the New England Patriots are so far above and beyond history. It's just simply unfair to compare them to anybody. You just can't. They stopped everybody. They didn't lose for 20 years. They 6 championships spread out over a very long amount of time.
Could have easily been 8 or 9.
Yeah, and keep in mind how many Super Bowls they lost. That in and of it. What was it? 9 consecutive AFC championships. 9. That's it. We can complain about Tomlin. We can complain about Cowher. We can talk about Ben, who doesn't get the same amount of criticism that those two do for whatever reason. We can go with that up and down. The only thing I ever say is this discussion, this argument starts and ends with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. If you're going to tell me that the Steelers were the only team, how many Super Bowls did Peyton Manning win because of Tom Brady? 1. And it wasn't until it took a miracle and probably the most dominant playoff defensive performance we've seen since the Steel Curtain for the 2015 Broncos to beat the Patriots that year. I think that was in Denver. That was a legendary defense from
Omaha.
Denver. That's what it took for Manning to get his second Super Bowl.
Yeah,
And
that was the
Manning is,
Omaha
without
game.
question, one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks ever to play. It's not even an argument.
Yeah, that was the famous Omaha game. But let's switch reels, and we'll talk more about this because Ben actually has 2 games left. He actually has a big game coming up this Monday against the Cleveland Browns, where if the Steelers win that game, they will give themselves a much greater chance to go to the playoffs. If they lose, they are out. And before we jump into that, Neal, any news you want to jump into regarding the game and the injury report? I have the injury report up here in front of me. I know that
Well,
Arthur Millette was added to it, but let me just give you the names from the Steelers standpoint. I know Arthur Millette was added to it due to COVID, and you had Presley Harvin out for personal issues. Condolences to Presley Harvin and his family for the death of his father. Of course, Ben Roethlisberger doesn't practice during the week. He was a DNP. Buddy Johnson, I believe, is going to be out. I don't know if it was upgraded, but on here it was a DNP. Kendrick Green did not participate due to a calf. Fryermuth was a full participant coming back from his concussion. And Chris Wormley did not practice due to a groin, so he was a DNP. I think that Wormley one is very important, particularly in this game, given how Cleveland wants to play offense. What's your thoughts on
then
the
I got
injury report for the
really
Steelers?
bad news for you then, Lance.
Okay, update us.
Chris Wormley and Joe Schobert both were placed on the reserve COVID list, which I'll be honest with you, I haven't gotten my head around the exact rules that they have recently changed to put in place, but it does not sound as if either of those players would be available, or at the very least, they're going to miss practice time. So
I'm
you
surprised
are
they're
going
not
into this
allowed to
game.
play. I'm surprised they're not allowed to play. It's the NFL to put the Scarlet C on
So
their helmet.
that's the thing. To get to the point where they're put on the list now means it's like double, 100% assurance that they have COVID and they're not coming off. Not getting on the list at all, which would mean stuff that we don't know about, is going to happen now at a much higher frequency than it was. They're only testing under certain conditions now. So for Schobert and Wormley to both be on the list probably means it's going to take a bit for them to get off, and it wouldn't seem likely to me that they're going to be out there. So maybe people in the audience can help us out. Who the hell is going to play on the Steelers defensive line this week? I don't know, but you don't even have a Wormley. You don't even have Wormley. And on top of that, Daniel Archibong, who was placed on the practice squad COVID list. So you don't even have a Daniel Archibong. And to be honest with you, he hasn't played in the last month or so anyway. So I'm not sure that matters, but they don't have anybody, Lance. And we've talked incessantly over the last month of how bad the middle of their front seven is playing. To lose 2 guys in that area for this game against a good running team, Cleveland's not going to have to do much. You can only hope that even though they have, they showed last week throwing the ball was more a priority to them than running it for some reason. I don't know why. They have absolutely no reason to not load up on the ground and suck the air out of the ball.
Well, let's hold that until our breakdown. Let me give you the Cleveland list. It's Baker's back, full participant. Sloan Takaki, Jarvis Landry, Andy Djokovic, Ronnie Harrison Jr. were all full participants. J.C. Treader was limited. Greg Newsome was limited, out with a concussion. Myles Garrett, groin, limited. JOK, Jeremiah Owusu, Karoma did not participate due to illness. I don't know if that's COVID or not. John Johnson, the third, hamstring, did not participate. Malik Jackson, Kareem Hunt, both did not participate with the knee and the ankle, respectively. And Troy Hill, with a knee, did not participate. Of that list, you might have the updated list because this was from 2 days ago in front of you. Did Kareem Hunt's or Malik Jackson's or JOK status change in Myles Garrett?
I don't know. They wouldn't have had to release an injury report beyond Thursday. And if they're probably practicing now, that'll be released a little bit later this afternoon. They're playing Monday, so their practice schedule when they have to report injuries is Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we'll find out more on that probably as the day unfolds here. But it doesn't matter unless you put most of their starters on the list. I think whatever the Steelers have left at this point is not playing. So they're in trouble. It's going to be Going to be not good.
Transitioning into the breakdown of this game, I'm going to get into Melvin's point and big up to Melvin, big up to everybody on the live chat. Make sure you like and subscribe to the program. The last show on YouTube did very well, so I want to thank everybody out there who listened to our last show. I never know if we're going to do really good numbers when we go into criticism Steeler mode. It's just, it's just interesting how that works. And Mel basically broke it down. Keith Butler, defensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers, said if he was Cleveland, he would run on us. I think that kind of breaks it down. And let me just give you two basic stats. Cleveland is averaging number one in the National Football League, 5.1 yards per carry. They're tied with Indianapolis and Philadelphia, who are all averaging 5.1 yards per carry. Here's the interesting thing about that stat, because you hear a lot of stuff saying that the running game is gone. There are 10 teams in the National Football League averaging at least 4.5 yards per carry or more, which is pretty impressive given the narrative that the media would like to tell you about football. And when you averaging 5.1 yards per carry, you're going up against a defense in the Steelers that's last in the National Football League, who's giving up 4.8 yards per carry. Another interesting team on this list, two interesting teams as well that are very good teams that are the number one seeds in football, are the Kansas City Chiefs and Green Bay Packers. Just as an aside, Kansas City's giving up 4.7 yards per carry and Green Bay 4.8. So that tells you that at least defensively, teams, you can still be a very good team if you prioritize eliminating big plays in the passing game, and you score points that you not necessarily are going to get beat by the running game. But we always talk about on this show, it doesn't always necessarily line up that if a defense doesn't do something well, that a team can take advantage of that. Teams are going to play to their strength. If you're a good passing team, you're going to pass the ball. You're going to figure out how to make that work. You're not necessarily going to switch from a Honda to a Maserati or a Maserati to a Honda and try to become this running team in a week. If you can't do it, you don't do it. And so, but this is one of those bad matchups where Cleveland runs the ball well, and the Steelers do not run the ball. Stop the run very well. In the first matchup, Cleveland only ran it 23 times for 96 yards. To Neal's point, and to Keith Butler's point, and giving the injuries of the Steelers, you're going to see that number increase. They are going to absolutely run it more than 23 times. And it was an interesting game plan in the first game because it was still very much a close game. And this is when Baker Mayfield's shoulder was newly injured. And they still only ran it 16 times with Nick Chubb. You're going to get a healthy diet of Nick Chubb in this game. What's your thoughts, Neal?
I would be giving it to Chubb left, right, and center for the 3 quarters of the game that you need him to do that. The fourth quarter is going to be a comfortable lead against a team that can't score points anymore. Certainly not when they're probably staked with a 4-touchdown lead because they can't stop the run. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, Keith Butler said it the best. If I was the Browns, I'd run on us. I mean, that's it. The Steelers' problems are not schematic alone. So I'm sure everyone's ripping on Butler. Well, you need to figure it out. Butler's not on the field. There comes a point you're getting whipped hat on hat the way the Steelers are. That's your players. That's not what you're asking them to do. You're asking them at a general level to be in a gap to stop a guy that's coming through it, and they can't do that. So I'm not sure what else you need. But as far as the Steelers go in their defense going into this game, it got worse. Believe it or not, it gets worse. If Chris Wormley and Joe Schobert aren't on the field, when you're worsened because of that, you're in real trouble anyway. And then whoever it is that's going to replace him, some combination of, I don't know. I don't remember what linemen are left. But you've got Robert Spillane that's going to come in. You've seen him do a thing or two. Not a hard guy to target in the passing game. You can set up play action off of that. You can set up bootlegs. They're at a tremendous disadvantage in the middle of the field again. And I don't think Cleveland has to do much except what they do well against a team like this. To me, it's no different than Tennessee. And we talked about that. It's not, you don't look at a team and say, well, their performance against 7 other teams indicates that they're not good at stopping the run. Therefore, we need to run the ball. It's a matchups game. It means who you're playing against, not who they played against previously. in this case, just like with the Titans, it's the unfortunate thing for Pittsburgh in that what Pittsburgh can't do is what Tennessee wants to do. It's what Cleveland wants to do. Cleveland probably beats Green Bay last week if, well, one, not for 4 Baker Mayfield turnovers, but if they continue to run the ball the way that they were throughout the entire game, they probably extend possessions. They keep Aaron Rodgers off the field, and they're able to win that game close. I think anybody watch that can see that, as hindsight as it is. I don't think they're going to make that mistake this time because Cleveland needs this game too. Keep that in mind. You're in Pittsburgh. You need to take the crowd out of it. This game screams Nick Chubb. And I'll say this. If Kevin Stefanski does not hope to get Nick Chubb going early and often in this game, I think he's grossly outthinking what he's doing and who he's going against. I don't think Pittsburgh should be at all surprised with the idea that probably the best all-around running back in the NFL is going to get the ball a lot early in this game. They're going to try to just kind of power it away, get up 14-3 with an 11-minute time of possession advantage. And from there, you can just salt away at a team that can't score points. So putting all that together, I think it's pretty obvious. I think that this is it's just as simple as what Tennessee's game plan was and would have worked if they didn't lose 4 plays in the game. They won every other one. I think if Pittsburgh's going to win, it's going to have to be something like that. And it's not because Cleveland is a dominant team. It's just simply because Cleveland can do what Pittsburgh cannot, and Cleveland wants to do what Pittsburgh cannot.
I think for the Steelers to win this game, and it's just like Green Bay won the game, it's the Baker factor. And if you're Kevin Stefanski, you have to limit Baker Mayfield's throws. I mean, you just have to manage Baker Mayfield like he's an inexperienced, kind of that in-between guy. Not inexperienced, but you've got to manage his throws. The more Baker throws it, the more apt he is to make mistakes. Because Baker's an aggressive player. Baker is a gunslinger, but doesn't have, in my opinion, gunslinger physical characteristics. Baker Mayfield is like a poor man's Kyler Murray. He wants to kind of play like Kyler Murray, but he doesn't throw the ball as well as Kyler Murray, and he doesn't run as well as Kyler Murray. So he's a poor man's Kyler Murray, but he's really aggressive. And so the more the Browns can take Baker Mayfield out of the equation, meaning running the ball or very defined short passing stuff where he's not challenging the middle of the field, where he has to read it out, that's better for the Browns. And you said something very key in this game, Neal. It's the Steelers' offense that doesn't really threaten people. And it's ironic in this game is that the Steelers and Najee Davenport, wow, why did I say Najee Davenport? Najee Harris. Wow, that was I brought my Najee Davenport. Jeez.
That's a throwback.
Najee Harris ran the ball pretty well in the game. He ran it 26 times for 91 yards. I thought the Steelers did a good job of using duo in that game late in the fourth quarter to kind of salt away the clock in the fourth quarter and run the football pretty well. I thought Kendrick Green and I thought the guards in the interior used double teams very effectively in that game and kind of ran it better than you normally see it. I'm not sure if that will continue. I think the Steelers will run it okay, but the Steelers don't generate explosive plays. They're not an explosive offense.
That's it right there.
Like you can warm your way into the game. You're going to get about 11 possessions, 10 to 11 possessions. Against the Steelers, you can literally figure it out and not do much with about 4 of those possessions and feel like you got enough possessions to actually beat them. Like if you have a 7 possession, 6 possessions, you feel like, okay, we can kick field goals on a couple of those, score a couple of touchdowns. We're pretty good this game because they're not going to get out in front of us and blow us out with a big lead. I think the other thing also is, the Steelers have to pass protect well in this game, and they have to turn over Baker Mayfield. This is a game that's a turnover game. Of course, you got to hold up in the running game a little bit against Nick Chubb, but you have to get a lead. You have to hope they put the game in Baker Mayfield's hands and that you can turn Baker Mayfield over and get extra possessions. The Steelers need 12 to 14 possessions to score 25, 24 plus. They need extra possessions. They need to turn Baker Mayfield over to win this game. Now, let me jump into a point also on Twitter. This emotional motivation thing. And this is and a lot of this was coming from what are we calling it? The pre-Ben era and the post-Ben era,
I call
PB1,
it the Steel
PB2.
Curtain era and the Ben era.
Okay, the Ben era and the Steel Curtain era. So the Ben era fans, you know, the world starts and ends with Ben, and no shame to you. The Steelers are going to be extra motivated to give a win to Ben in his last probably home finale so they can do him like Rudy and carry him off the field. Yay, rah rah, shish boom bah. Right? The Steel Curtain era is, well, if they can't tackle Nick Chubb, what does it matter? Speak to this motivation point because I think motivation, that type of motivation is nonsense. I think the Cleveland Browns, if you want to go that route, are equally motivated to give Ben Roethlisberger a loss in his home finale as well. What's your thought on this whole rah rah shish kumbah, the motivation factor from both sides? Does any outweigh the other? Because I think they nullify each other. They don't really matter.
I think it's something to point to at the conclusion of a game that has kind of a landslide feel to it. I've often said that there was always something with those Steelers teams in prime time at home. You add in a different uniform and you add in a rival opponent and some type of ceremony that honored some faction of the Steel Curtain era. It seemed like a Steelers team that always came out more sharp, more focused than they have to that point in the season. And we can point to the fact that the Steelers haven't lost a Monday night game at home in a very long time. I forget exactly what it is, but it's been a while since they've lost a home Monday night game. Those types of things, I think, do give you a little bit of an advantage. As far as it being Ben's last home game versus his last actual game versus whether the opponent gives a toss or not, I don't think they have as much time to sit and talk about these things the way that we do. Players, for the most part, are far less emotionally interested in the outcome than we are. It's money. I'm not going to say what player has told me that, but he said it flat out. I love playing football. I love playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I will never care for it on the level that Steelers fans do. And that's what makes fans fans. It's understandable. He wasn't trying to be a jerk about it. It's just fans get into everything and they create their own kind of narrative of what's really happening. I think there absolutely is a sense of emotion. They want to go out there and win for Ben. They want to do that. That is not going to make them better football players. Okay. That's really the bottom line. They're playing against equally motivated people that are looking to provide 2 generations of wealth for their families. They want to keep their jobs. There's plenty of motivation that's there that they're basically saying, I don't give a rip about Ben Roethlisberger. I want to play. I want to put out good film because then I'll keep a job. I'll get a contract extension. I'll get paid more. That's the motivation here. I know that that's not fun. It's not romantic. It's not what people really want to hear about the savage ballet that is football. But the reality is they're young guys that are trying to do something with what they have, from God-given gifts. They're not looking to honor Ben Roethlisberger the way that we do. So in that, you have to understand there's going to be a sense of emotion anyway. And the Steelers have won. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think they've lost a Monday night game in several years now, a home Monday night game.
I can't remember them losing one at least in 5 years.
Yeah, it's been quite a while since they have. Longer than that even. Might even go back further than that. 5 years. It might be like 10, I think.
Only thing I would say, if they played the Patriots on Monday night at home, they lost.
Right. I think that's probably the difference. They only play primetime games at New England. You know that. They don't want New England coming to Pittsburgh for primetime. That's no good.
They don't want to interrupt with the mics. You can't interrupt with the helmet mics.
Exactly.
in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, fans ultimately, I do think there is a sense of emotion that comes into it. And I'm not trying to say that the players don't get a little bit maybe more excited for those kinds of games, but it doesn't make them better football players. It doesn't make them better coaches. They don't just all of a sudden click into place the way they would in a Disney movie. It's an opponent on opponent game. Both guys on both sides get paid money. Coaches get paid money. They're trying to figure out how to beat their opponent, not win the Super Bowl in the regular season. It's not a global thing. It's hat on hat. Your guy versus your guy versus you, their line versus your line. That's what the essence of competition is, and they're not doing that because they love Ben. They're not laying down because they hate Ben. They're trying to beat the other guy across from them because it keeps them in a job. I know that's not fun, but that's the way it is.
Here's an interesting point, and thanks to Grayson Brown. Pick up the Grayson, longtime listener of the program. Yeah. Happy New Year to you, Grayson. Monday night record, 19 straight, 51 total. Also, hopefully no one else like Mike Medina is having a problem with the stream. Hopefully it's just Mike's tablet because it's crashing his app on his TV. But hopefully, Mike, you get that straightened out. Maybe what we're saying is so controversial, it's crashing your TV.
I'm not even really ranting this time.
Bang. Yes, exactly.
Went out last week when I freaked out.
Oh yeah, it was lovely. Come on, man.
I love to have you on the show for a minute.
I love when you go off. But let me speak to your point about it, and let me just echo that. From the player that will never be named, we talked about I believe it was what's the Sable show, the NFL Sable show. What's that called? The NFL show.
A bunch of
NFL Films.
Yeah, that's the company.
And so, NFL Films, and RIP to John Madden. RIP to John Madden, a Goliath and a giant in football. John Madden is so respected, even from a Steeler perspective. No Steeler fan gives shade to John Madden. So RIP to John Madden, condolences to his family. Everybody that I know respects Madden and had a copy of John Madden football. I mean, John Madden and Pat Summerall. I mean, watching those two guys do a game. And ironically, John Madden's last game that he called was a Pittsburgh Steelers game against the Arizona Cardinals. So
the legendary Steelers game.
The legendary John Madden. So speaking to that game, so NFL Films did a cut, their cut-ups of the game. And there was a clip where a player was trying to get the rest of their team motivated. Rest of the Steeler team motivated to go, play really well and play really hard, trying to get his unit fired up. And I asked him, did you really do that, before the critical drive in the fourth quarter? And he was like, absolutely not. That clip was from the first quarter. That was actually from when we actually started the game.
Yep.
That was our first drive. And so I say that to say a lot of what you see, especially on the NFL Films, is curated. And he also said to me that it's just play to play. You just it's one play, then it's the next play. You don't have to. It's you don't have time to think about 2 snaps ago. It's just the play is called, you execute, you move to the next play. You're just in the moment. And when the game is over, the game is over. That's it. He's just look, this is just very matter of fact. This is a business. We go out, we have stuff that we got to do. We try to do it to the best of our ability. Then we move on to the next opponent. So, but that's the beauty of being fans. We don't have to consume the game in the same way because we're not getting paid. We're not getting hit. So we can just romanticize it. And actually, I love that it's romanticized. I mean, we don't have to be
have that level we're here to do.
Yeah, that's what we're here to do. We don't have to have that level of pragmatism. So
yeah.
With it being said, let's get down to predictions of this Cleveland game. What's your prediction, Neal?
I don't know. This team is so hard to predict week to week. Something in me says that Pittsburgh's going to keep this close, but I really don't have any, I don't have any good evidence to suggest why they would be able to do it. I think Cleveland should win. I just don't think Cleveland just won't get it done. That's just kind of who Cleveland is. And I've supported them as far as this is going to be a good team. They've put good pieces together. I've been saying that for 3 years. And look at where they are now. Why is Cincinnati leading the division right now? There's no reason that should have happened. Cleveland just can't get it done. They should have won the first time they played. Baker didn't play well. He was hurt. But it was enough for them. They should have been able to win that game. But they just didn't. And that's kind of them. They just don't. That said, I think they're still going to win. But oh boy, betting
Give me
against Ben on a big stage is
give me a
really
score.
hard to do.
Give me a score.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to bet on the Magic this time, and I shouldn't. Please call me out for being wrong. I'm going to say Pittsburgh 27, Cleveland 23, and I think it's going to be a dramatic ending.
You know what, Neal? I agree with you. I texted you yesterday and said that the Steelers would lose to the Browns, but it's the Browns, and I'm going with against my head. I'm going to go into straight fan mode because everything says to me that Nick Chubb should run for about 225 and average about 5.5 yards per carry.
We just saw him do that last week and they lost.
Yes.
That's my point. Cleveland just doesn't,
They have Baker Mayfield. They have Baker Mayfield. And so if they have Baker, you have a chance. Baker's going to Vinny Testaverde it. Have about 5 or 6 throws that could go into the hands of someone else. If the Steelers catch those, Ben he dips his body into Lake Minnetonka, and he comes out arm fresh, purified, invigorated. And I think Big Ben actually just lays it all out. And I think Ben is slanging it. I think we see no huddle.
I think Ben's just gonna. I think Ben's just gonna say "F you, Matt Canada." I'm calling this game.
He's like, look, I think Ben is slanging it. Here's the thing, more than anything. So I think the Steelers win this game. I think they turn Baker Mayfield over multiple times. I think the Steelers win this game around 24-16. As even if Ben goes off, they're not scoring much more than 24 points.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go 20. I'm gonna go 24-16. Steelers win. They carry Ben off because after he's been purified in Lake Minnetonka, and big up to Corey for the great spelling of Lake Minnetonka. And I don't even think Corey looked that up on Google because he typed that fast. He typed that fast. Yeah, MHS. Lake Minnetonka, baby. The elbows in Lake Minnetonka, baby. He's getting baptized. Here's my thing. I'm going to ask you this. What's the over-under on pass attempts this game for Ben Roethlisberger? I think that's the real thing. I think
it's going to be like 50. I don't you know what I see? I see something like the Colts game last year where Ben must have gone into the locker room and gotten a couple shots or something, whether that was, shots or whether it was shots. He got something that completely changed him as a player for that second half. And he came out gunning. I think he's going to do the same type of thing. Not literally. I just mean that he's never left anything on the field his entire career. If you think he's doing it on Monday night against the Browns, when the Browns have something to play for and the Steelers kind of have something to play for, I think you're mistaken. Browns are 3.5-point road favorites, which takes quite a bit to do anyway. But Ben is not going to stand for that, and he has no problem throwing what's left of his arm off to win the game. He will. I feel like that's the kind of performance we're going to get from him in this game.
Stop it, Felicia. Stop it, Felicia. That luck was with another podcast platform. That luck has not followed me to the new standard.
We just pick them to lose every game, and we just usually do now.
Yeah, hey, man. I think also Grayson brought up a good point. There's a bunch of former players that are coming to see him for his final game. Hey, man, yes, 50 pass attempts, and Corey Hatcher said 50 pass attempts, half of them sideline bombs, the other half being screens.
3 of them sideline bombs, the rest of them screens. Okay, the key thing is that middle of the field that they've ignored. I think that's the stuff Ben is going to come in and say, you know what, Pat Freiermuth, this is my last home game. You are going to get sick. Be ready for it. I think that's just in Ben's character. We've watched every game he's played. We've known the guy for 20 years, essentially. This is the type of player that he is. It's the type of guy that he is. He'll never say it. He wants to be the guy known as winning. He's never going to talk about himself as an individual. He relishes that individual spotlight. And I don't mean that he's selfish or anything like that. I just mean He wants to be the hero. And this is really,
Oh yeah.
he knows as well
Yeah.
as we do, this team isn't going anywhere. This is his last chance to do that in front of his crowd. And that game is a lot tougher against Baltimore next week. You're not sure what you're going to get there. He's going to, he's going to play as if this is his last game tonight. I mean that literally. He's going to give everything for it. If he has the opportunity to show things, he's going to show it. If he has anything left in his arm, he's going to put it out there. You're going to see them attack heavily. And I'm not sure that's going to be the game plan per se. It's going to be what Ben does, though.
Yeah, Ben's personality is very much F your couch, being the skit on Dave Chappelle when Rick James used to wipe his shoes off on Eddie Murphy's couch, the muddy shoes. Ben is very much a F your couch. I mean, and great players are like that. And he's slinging it, man. He is slinging it on Monday. Here's the only thing. Here's another prediction. Will you get it right? Because you predicted that there will be an interview of Ben to open the show, and there's going to be the big Ben one-on-one interview with who does the Monday night games? Is it going to be with I don't know who the Monday night crew is. It won't be with Greasy.
No,
who would they do the one-on-one interview with?
You've got 1,000 people. It's whoever Ben wants to do the interview with is who it's going to be. And
I think they'll do that. I think it'd be interesting if he did the interview with John Elway. That would be neat if they did the interview with Elway, number 7, the original 7, and the Elway, Elway and Ben. That would be great. But they're definitely going to do this tribute to Ben in the last, and they should. I think whatever Ben gets, whatever kudos that he gets, and the flowers that he gets, he deserves them. I mean, he's given his body to the organization, and they've been highly successful. I mean, he got the 2 championships, and for that, as you see on the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, his legend will last forever. But before we get out of here, I was going to talk about Tomlin, but the one thing I'll say about Mike Tomlin and the Fire Tomlin every week on Twitter, Tomlin is the guy in charge of the rebuild. Him and Cowher are in charge of the rebuild. If you removed Cowher and Tomlin from the equation, Steeler fan can't handle 7-7-1. You remove Tomlin and Colbert from the equation of the rebuild, they're going 3-14 next year. Also, let me give you one other thing. Listeners, when Tomlin says he wants a veteran quarterback, Steeler Nation goes, oh my God, let me do an emoji or an image of Aaron Rodgers in a Steeler throwback jersey.
So tired of seeing that.
Veteran quarterback simply means you've played in the National Football League.
Veteran quarterback. Eagles, Mason Rudolph.
His record is 5-4-1 as a starter. They went 8-8 with Duck Rudolph. Yes, I combined the names. They went 8-8 with Duck Rudolph. That wasn't
a mistake.
It was not a mistake.
But it wasn't.
If Duck Rudolph can go 8-8, they have no issue starting Mason Rudolph at all.
What Tomlin is saying with that is we're not drafting a rookie to start. He has a veteran quarterback. As much as I hate to say it, because there are a lot of things I would rather see them do, there is no scenario that exists that makes me think where we sit now, obviously barring injury, Mason Rudolph is not starting week 1 next year. And he fits exactly what Tomlin said. I want a veteran quarterback. Anytime Mike Tomlin gives you specific detail in a press conference, there's a reason, okay? He's not going to tell you it's Mason Rudolph, but he is going to say it's Mason Rudolph if you think about it. And that's what he's doing.
Oh, yeah, he's not going to tell you Mason Rudolph. He's going to, wink, wink, tell you it's Mason Rudolph. So somebody if you're just
ironically waddles around, quacks, and has web feed, he's Mason Rudolph. He's Duck Rudolph, Lance.
It's Duck Rudolph. I mean, that's who it's going to be. He'll bring in somebody else to compete with Mason Rudolph for the starting position at some point, because they'll only have one quarterback on the roster, and I think it'll be Mason Rudolph. They only have one guy signed, so you'll have a quarterback room with 3 guys, and it'll just be guys.
And from my perspective, and they'll sign somebody. But
from my perspective, if they're not going to compete really next year, who cares who's the bridge quarterback? It's bridge quarterback. Ben was the bridge quarterback this year. Mason Rudolph will be the bridge quarterback next year, and they might find another bridge quarterback. They might find a name somewhere, but you'll have bridge guys till you find the guy. But let me
Mhm.
get you before we get out of here. Give me your national semifinal picks, Alabama and Cincinnati, because I know we're all football fans. I just want to get your perspective real quick. And Alabama, Michigan, Georgia. Who's your picks?
Alabama's going to roll. That won't be competitive, in my opinion. When you give a team that is as loaded um, with high caliber talent, high caliber athleticism, that much time to prepare for a team that doesn't have that, it's not about the team. It's about the individuals. And the college level, that's really what it is. I think coaching at the college level is the most overrated area of coaching there is at the absolute top of it. Alabama, for example. Not to take away what Nick Saban knows about football, which I'm sure he sat down and lost this morning more than I'll ever have by far and away. But you don't need a whole lot to coach the abundance of talent that they have on that team. You need to get them hungry. You need to get them focused. You need to keep them eligible. You get them out on the field, they're going to mow down a lesser 5 conference school simply because they have dudes and the other team isn't going to have dudes. To me, that's a no-brainer. It's harder and harder for me to pick a Big Ten team over anybody anymore. I can't bet on a Jim Harbaugh college team. Not anymore. He's not in Stanford. I don't want to pick him either. So I think we've got the rematch that most people expect to be coming.
I'm gonna go a little bit different. I think Bama kills Cincinnati, but I think it's a little bit closer. I think it's closer in the first half than they get steamrolled in the second half. I think Michigan pulls the upset. I'm gonna give a shot to my boy John Davis, JD from Detroit, my guy. He calls him Newball instead of Harbaugh. He's Newball. He's Newball. There's a new khaki in town. The pleats will work, and somehow Michigan will win a dogfight against Georgia and win a close game. My mind says, hell, I picked the Steelers to beat Cleveland because I just think Ben is going to get onto Lake Minnetonka and go into the rejuvenate himself, sort of like Wolverine, and all his injuries go away and he regenerates perfect health. So if I can pick the Steelers against Cleveland, I'm picking Michigan against Georgia. We get Michigan, Alabama in a national championship game. And Bryce Young, modern day quarterback from California, absolutely destroys Michigan in a national championship game.
That kid's good. That kid is good.
Yeah, what do you think about him? You think he's a high first round draft pick, high first round draft pick when he comes out?
Easily.
No
Top
issues with his
3.
size?
No, not anymore. Way too many smaller quarterbacks are having great careers. The physical talents that he has, you can't deny that. You'd love him to be 6'5". The trend of everything football, offensive football, is out of the pocket. So you're sticking yourself inside of a box if you need your quarterback to be 6'5" to play in the pocket. They don't want him playing in the pocket. They want him on the move. He's a great athlete. He's got a great feel for the game. He's smart. He's a high character kid. Zero reason he's not a top 3 draft pick in my mind.
Yeah, and he's coming from a very good program, and I think Mac Jones' success, will only help him because Alabama, for one position group over their history, has struggled, since Joe Namath, having a really good quarterback come out of their program.
Well, they didn't need him for the most part. I mean, Saban has changed up what he's trying to do to find these blue chip guys to come in and get the exposure. And I'm not to suggest that Mac Jones is some type of failure, but he's not at Bryce Young's level as far as his ability. But Mac Jones is a very good quarterback. He's always been a very good quarterback. The issue is he just doesn't have the ceiling because he's about as good an athlete as I am. He doesn't move. He's immobile in the pocket. He's clunky. His feet are good enough, but Mac Jones is this sounds coded as hell. I apologize, but Mac Jones is very smart. He delivers a catchable ball almost every situation. There's a lot of things you can do to coach Mac Jones up, but the fact that he doesn't have the ability to kind of create his own chaos makes him the 15th pick and not a top 5 pick. He was, without question, the second best quarterback of that draft. Without question. He is years ahead of Kyle Wilson, to put it that way. Zach Wilson. Sorry, I don't know why I keep calling him Kyle Wilson. Wasn't it the cornerback?
Well, you called him that because You called him that because in the combine he did an off-platform throw for 70 yards.
Yeah, which is huge. The guy's got arm talent for days, but he's not a passer the way that Mac Jones is. Mac can put Mac can put a football 200 yards down the field up somebody's ass if he wanted to. He's that accurate. He has that much talent. He just doesn't have the explosive talent, and he can't move. So you lose that entire dimension of the game. You can't put him on the move. They never moved him out of the pocket at Alabama. So if you're drafting him, you have to draft him with the bare minimum idea in mind that if you want him to roll out, you're going to have to teach him how to do it because he hasn't done it. That isn't necessarily what you want in a top 5 quarterback. But if you're at 15 and you have a great offensive coach and you have a great offensive scheme, the way the Patriots do, he's going to fit in and do really well, as he has. He's a good quarterback already.
Yeah, I agree with you. And before we get out of here, I think, when you get a guy that's mobile, it just gives an offense and an offensive coordinator the ability to do everything. Nothing is off the table. Even
Kyler
if they
Murray's
don't
name came up. That's why Kyler Murray was a top pick. It's not because he was a great passer, because he's not. But he gives you a dimension that's impossible to plan for. It's really hard to stop a guy that can get out to the edge and move. If he can throw and run, that much it's that much harder.
Yeah,
you value that. That's why he's number one.
Is outstanding. So before we get out of here, Neal said, before we get out of here, Melvin said that Neal should get the interview on Monday night. Yeah, I'm gonna stump for that. I'm gonna let the powers that be.
I didn't even think of that. Ben, come on, man. You talked to me twice. Remember? Remember
back
me?
in the day, you talked to me twice. Yes. And by the way, if you guys are feeling really nostalgic, go to on Western Avenue in the North Side, go to Pepe's and get a Roethlisberger sandwich. The funny thing about Pittsburgh is everybody talks about Permanis, but if you're from the North Side, you eat Pepe's. We grew up eating Pepe's on Western Avenue over near Shamrock. You would go get some fried mushrooms or something, or some fried zucchini sticks from Shamrock, and you grab a sandwich from Pepe's. Later, they came up with the Roethlisberger, which is about the most fattening sandwich in the absolute world. You'll get a heart attack halfway through it. So if you don't like someone, buy them get them an Iron City or get them a brew and get them a Roethlisberger, because they might pass out by the time they get to the corner when you're walking to Heinz Field. But with that, we're going to get out of here. And again, Happy New Year's Eve. Happy New Year's to everybody. 2022 is coming in. Omicron is busting loose. So hopefully you are safe out there, because my goodness, 500,000 cases in a day. Man, be safe. Do what you need to do. Use your best discernment. Do what you need to do. Oh, you memorize it? See? Why don't you take us out,
I've heard
Neal?
it a few times.
You take us out, Neal. In 2021, were you taking us out with the slogan?
Thank you, 2021. Thank you, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Thank you for listening in. And as always, tell a friend and subscribe.
Nah, you didn't do it right. It's tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. It's like me saying Harbinger.
Word of the year in 2020, not Omicron. It's Harbinger.
But anyway, tune in.
Our new intro is Harbinger of Sorrow by Metallica. That's going to be our new intro song.
Tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe, and fake smile.